This is Deep Dish Conversations, a series in which I, Jerome Moore, sits down with prominent figures in Nashville, Tennessee to talk about social issues over amazing deep dish pizza. Deep Dish Conversations models how to have conversations about deep issues around racism, housing, policing, poverty, and more. Plus, you will get an idea for where to get your next slice of pizza from. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy Deep Dish Conversations. What's going on, everybody? This is your host of Deep Dish Conversations, Jerome Moore, and welcome to another amazing episode. And as I always say, each episode is amazing, and I'm really excited about this one. Today we have Acuff. Acuff. I want to put a little Acuff on there. I don't know. I don't know why.
We get that a lot.
Acuff. It's just literally Acuff.
Acuff.
Will Acuff, who is the co-founder and the executive director of Corner to Corner, based here in Nashville, faith-based organization. We're gonna get into that, and me and Will already been talking. He was videoing me when he pulled up. I don't know who's doing the interviewing right now, but we've never met in person. But I followed Will. He has an amazing story and just has an amazing presentation. And if you don't really do your research, you probably have a misconception about Will. Maybe some white saviorism, possibly, just because of what you see on the surface. But if you look into his journey and his experience and what he does, then everything unfolds. And that's what we're gonna do today, and just the impact that he has on like neighbors and community here in Nashville. That's why we're here. But we're gonna get real deep. I appreciate you being here, Will. How you been?
Yeah, man. Let's go. I'm ready. Let's talk white saviorism. Let's go deep fast. Before the pizza gets here, because once the pizza gets here, I'm gonna chill out a little bit.
Let's get into it. So, as I explained to Will, if you look at Will on the surface, white man, has a faith-based nonprofit in Nashville that primarily helps people of color, black people in low socioeconomic areas. Father, wife, has an adopted black child with a special needs disability, and Christian faith-based, and he helps people. So on the surface, that spells like in capital letters, like white savior all the way. Yeah. Like prime, like that's top notch white saviorism.
Yeah, like an after school special movie. This is like a Hallmark special.
The only thing that, like, out of 1 out of 10, the only reason why it would be like a 9.5 out of white saviorism is because you adopted domestically.
Yeah. Twice.
Twice. Yeah. And so if it wasn't for that, if you would have went to,
I would have been a full 10 out of 10.
It would have been a full 12 out of 10.
He's checking all the boxes. This guy thinks he's the great white hope.
Right. Yep. It's so, like, on the surface, when you see that, he's like it's got to be something more, right? Yep. And after doing my research, there's definitely something more. And so let's get into that. So let's talk about white saviorism and how do you avoid that? How did you make sure you don't check off those boxes? And of course, people have their own perceptions, but how do you internally know, like, what I'm doing and how I'm doing it is out of like the real goodwill of me wanting to not like kind of help people but build people up. That's what I really try to get away from that word help, but like build power with people, because when I'm going or you going, people can still move and do their thing, start like continue their businesses and things that Corner to Corner does
that aren't putting us at the center of their story.
Right. Exactly.
I've got a lot of answers to this question. Depends on where you want to go, right? I'll start from a kind of a really nerdy answer, which is what I would describe as having an asset-based community model instead of a needs-based, right? Because the needs-based says, look at this neighborhood, we see XYZ problems, and we assume we know how to fix it, and we're going to bring in a middle-class efficiency framework to fix XYZ, right? And often that also means we're going to bring in white supremacy. We're going to bring in standards that are developed for the white community in mind, and that good is defined on how we define it, right? That's and paternalism can sometimes be in with and under that vibe, right? As opposed to that, on the asset-based model, you start from a different approach. And you say, what is already happening that's incredible? Right? And how do we amplify the good? Right? And so shifting that position of mindset doesn't guarantee you're going to get away from the white saviorism, right?
Right.
But it does mean you're starting from a much better position.
Right.
So that'd be kind of my first answer. An example of this is like literacy rates in Nashville, right?
Right.
Two-thirds of our kids aren't reading at grade level.
Right.
That stat hasn't moved significantly in over 20 years, right?
Right.
And that primarily affects low-income communities,
Right.
which in Nashville, right,
Right.
Means black and brown kids.
Right.
And so you could start with the problem.
Right.
Or you could say, hey, our kids are amazing and creative
Right.
and are making content on every social platform you can think of.
Right.
And grown-ups are sitting at home going, this is amazing, right?
Right,
I don't
right.
understand how any of this works,
Right.
right? So we could start from the asset-based, oh my gosh, incredible creators.
Right.
How can we get at the literacy challenges through this amazing asset of youth creativity?
Right.
Right? Those kind of things then put the kid front and center
Right.
versus the kid as the problem or the
Right.
kid as the victim.
Right.
So that's what I mean by the asset-based.
And
Then if-
you all have like a scene to
Script to screen.
Script to screen. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like using that like the movie, the content,
Yep.
but being able to develop literacy in a fun way for you, which I think is super dope.
Yeah. The logistics of that program are like I was showing up over and over and over again at rec centers and mostly trying to convince kids to spend time reading, right?
Right.
And kids were like, for real? Like, leave me alone.
I got this movie,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's a movie.
Yeah, I got
this-
something else
yeah.
going on. I got TikTok. I've got, whatever's happening here.
Right.
And I showed up with a camera one day, and kids were like, oh, are you a YouTuber? And I was like, I'm almost 40. Like, what's a YouTuber, right? Like, I had to Google it, right? That's how, like, the age gap. And then I saw that, and I was like, that's incredible. How do we copy
Right.
that love of creation
Right.
and YouTube
Right.
and content and paste it onto reading?
Right.
Right. And that's what gave birth to Script to Screen was reading
amazing.
Black Panther, Spider-Verse script while simultaneously watching the movie, and then from there working on their own movies.
This is a quick plug. I think a connection that should happen if it hasn't already happened with
Yep.
National Public Library.
Yes, we've had some early dialogues,
Okay.
but then COVID happened.
Okay.
And, like we were talking about, COVID stalled a lot of stuff.
Elizabeth, Liz, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on your last name.
You can edit this part out so you...
Attic something, but Liz.
Yeah.
I worked with her in an adult literacy program, and
Yeah.
but I know they do it. They're super like passionate,
Yeah.
and genuine about like literacy in Nashville.
Yeah.
And like whatever I can do to like
Yeah.
facilitate
for sure.
that and connect that.
We'll definitely have some
Yeah.
dialogues.
Okay,
but,
cool.
but to circle back to my personal answer to the white savior thing, right? And you brought up as soon as we met in the back, you were talking about my trip to Nairobi. The real story for me is came to faith at age 6, raised as I'm a pastor's kid, right?
Right.
And but raised outside of Boston, where my whole family had moved there to start a church, right?
Okay. Sole
that-
purpose.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
That started in the office of a gas station, right? We're not
Wow.
talking fancy. We're talking like bring your own chair, right?
Right.
Maybe your tambourine. We're gonna get
Right.
this rolling.
Bring everything that you would need to worship the way you need to worship.
because we don't have anything here. But I saw that grow like crazy from like 85 to 95, and I saw gospel as like lived out adventure
Right.
towards love of God and love of neighbor.
Right.
And when I came to college in the South, so I went to NC State,
Right.
that was the first time I was really in the mix with like Southern church culture.
Okay.
Right? And it was kind of a shock to my system. And that's a
Really?
whole other...
It shocked you?
Yeah. But that's a whole other trajectory, right? But the white saviorism thing, I had grown up with like some... solid doctrinal truth,
Right.
but I would say I had no theology of love of neighbor.
Okay.
Right? Awesome. I would describe what I had
awesome.
been taught as, again, some really solid stuff, but love of neighbor was essentially share the gospel, right? Or occasionally go on a mission trip for like 5 days
Right.
that makes you feel great,
Right.
that is fully white saviorism,
Right.
Where there's no relationship,
Right.
where it makes you feel better,
Right.
probably victimizes somebody.
Take some good pictures.
Yeah, well, back then, no camera
no,
phones.
no camera
Right,
phones.
Yeah, so it was like, wind up your camera,
Right. Kodak moment.
Yeah, and I thank goodness there weren't digital cameras back then. Woo! or social media for my youth. I got this. I was spared that. But I definitely had that mindset. Didn't know I had that mindset until I got a chance to go on this trip to Nairobi, led by an epidemiologist from UNC, who was an expert in the spread of the HIV/AIDS pandemic, and all the factors that influence that. And so for 6 months prior to going on that trip, we met at his house, he and his wife, and she was a general practitioner. And so we met at their house, and we read doctrinal papers, we read economic papers, we read things about like how North American policy influences sub-Saharan African poverty, right? Like stuff that I'd never heard about, right? Just oblivious. And then we went to Nairobi, and we all divided up. So it wasn't like, we're going to stay in this nice hotel, and you're going to, It was like, I was staying with a Kenyan family on the edge of this slum with no running water. I'd never been out of the U.S. before. It
was immersed.
Yeah, it was immersed. And my worldview dissolved. Right? Blew up is probably a better phrase. And I remember coming back from that trip and almost having like a visceral, like vomiting when I walked into my parents' middle-class home. It had never seemed opulent before, and now it seemed opulent. And I was like, if this Jesus is real, if that's who I say I follow, this cannot also exist in the world. Like this much brokenness, this much disparity. And it was one of those moments where, like, it's cliche, like white kid has to go to Africa to realize poverty's real, right? Like that's a trope. Guilty of that moment. But it led to not a I am going to fix. It led to I am going to learn.
That's different.
Totally different.
That's different. And how I know that's different. And that Nairobi, like that Nairobi trip, when I was doing my research and heard about that, that was what put me over the like oh, I really need to talk to Will, because I had a similar experience while doing Peace Corps. As far as like being just we're American. We like no matter what mentally, like, because culture is also how you think. And I think as an American, right? Going into Peace Corps, I learned, going to a small pueblo, little village, I learned that relationship building, they tell you the first 3 months in your site, don't even do anything, just get to know the people, right? And do like what they call as a needs assessment and learn. Don't do it. Don't think you have the answers. Just because you have a fancy U.S. degree, you dress better, you feel like you're coming from a more developed place. Just learn. And like when I heard you talk about that on other platforms, of how like you learn and not try to fix or not try to create something new. Really, like, it spoke to me on like a real personal level, because like he gets it. Like that's exactly like what it is. And from there, like that's there were lots of failed attempts at learning, right? But that's okay. That's so okay.
Well, but and that gets at something that I'm really passionate about, is an idea, cultural humility. Right? Like when you move towards neighbors with cultural humility, you come with a heart of learning and a posture of, I don't know. Show me. And it might take some time, right, to develop trust and long-term relationship, but you get away from that savior mentality. You get away from that hero mentality. And you get into what we describe at Corner as a neighbor-first approach, right? And like, if we want to really go here, right, this is what I'm like super passionate about, is the white Christian, especially evangelical world, has historically had we have the answers, we can fix you, and we can fix you quickly.
Short term.
And we're going to, short term, but also move at the speed of efficiency, not the speed of relationship. And the way nonprofits have been structured, both in terms of leadership, methodology, but also, most critically, I think, in terms of fundraising. We have this tragically broken model that I think we can destroy and rebuild. And specifically what I'm talking about is like, so in the course of all this learning, I got my master's in biblical theology so I could understand and talk better about this stuff. And one of the things they talk about is the anthropology of man, right? Like, who is mankind per the way the Bible describes it, right? Genesis to Revelation, what do we see? And what the Bible describes is we're created in the image of God, right? So on some level, more beautiful than we can fathom, right? One theologian put it like this, like you've never met a mere mortal, right? So you can imagine, like, we should be freaking out about each other. Like, when I see a new human, I should be like, you're incredible! Like, there's another one over here! Have you seen this guy? Right? We should be on some level having that experience of each other, right? But simultaneously, the Bible talks about we're broken, right? We hurt ourselves. We hurt those who we're closest to. We hurt our community, right? But we're both of those things. We're not one or the other. We're both. And in the nonprofit fundraising world, right? Think about, like, have you ever been to one of those fundraising banquets? Right? Yeah, you just sighed. He just sighed.
I've been,
Right? That's, I think, the proper reaction to a fundraising banquet. It's like the chicken will be bad and I'm going to feel awful, right? But the way those fundraising banquets work, right, in the Christian world is we rip this image of man apart. So one person, the donor, gets to come in bearing the image of God and the image of wealth in the world. And one person gets to come in bearing the image of victimhood, right? And the image of brokenness. And it creates distance and pity. And it says, hey, donor, you get to be the hero. Right? And it's nothing different than the typical Cadillac commercial, right?
Exactly.
Like, you see the Cadillac commercial, it's like rakish young man, loosens tie, beautiful city street, hops into his Cadillac. And in seconds, he's on like a mountain road, right? And you're like, where does dude live? Like, how close is the city to the mountains, right?
And how does the Cadillac get?
And how is his parking was amazing. How did he not get towed or booted, right? But then he's driving, and you're watching, you're like, I'm kind of like that dude, right? Like, I'm master of my domain. And then he pulls into this modern home, and a supermodel walks out with this much bourbon, right? It's like just perfect. And he kind of knowingly looks at the camera like, right? And you see
I'm
that. I'm a Cadillac man. And you go, I want to live that life. I want to be the hero of that story. And then the same thing happens in the nonprofit world. We say, hey, donor, you can be the hero. You can be the savior. And what we've not done is create neighbors. We've created a hero and a victim. Right? And it opens wallets and it funds programs, but it's abhorrent. And it needs to die. Right? We need a better model of storytelling that says, no. We are going to bring people together, showing that everybody here has something to give and something to receive.
Well, man, and a lot of people may not understand or know this, but even the structure of just nonprofits and the funding, it's still all embedded in white supremacy.
100%. And you're still trying to convince people that white supremacy is real. No, I can't tell you. I frequently have conversations where people say, and it's heartbreaking to me, right? Where they say, hey, you guys talk about race too much and Jesus too little. So I'm out. And I'm like, what Bible are you reading? That you can come to that position. And it's heartbreaking, man.
That's crazy. Wow. Is that, I guess, I don't know, I guess it's more comfortable to talk about like things from a Jesus only lens and not like bring in like other realities.
Or act like we're just spiritual floating bodies, not in physical.
Wow. That's a new one. Wow. So when you get those type of statements and people are brought so what does that do for you internally?
Like my own emotional experience of that, weeping and sorrow. Like no, in all seriousness, it is heartbreaking, right? There's a part of me that's just sad, and there's a part of me that wants to react in anger, and like slam somebody. You know what I mean? And honestly, that's the easier emotional reaction, is to condemn, right? But I'm so convinced personally of Jesus' abundant mercy and grace that how dare I say, like, you don't get it, F you. You know what I mean? And so I try. I've got good friends to talk this out with. I've got Tiffany to talk it out with. But I try to say,
and by the way, Tiffany is his wife, which is also the other co-founder of Corner to Corner. So just put that plug in there. Hey, Tiffany.
Amazing. I try to say like, I'm not going to let you make me an enemy.
Right.
Right. And I would love to go deeper on this dialogue with you.
Right.
And maybe here's some resources
Right.
for you. But I'm also not going to get into the culture war arguments
Right.
that I think you're ultimately wrong
Right.
and you're wasting my time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm not going to be mean about it and hate
Right.
you. But if you're not willing to engage intellectually, if you're just going to...
I'm not going to let it hold me up. I got to keep
Not at
going.
all. Yeah. And there's this great line from Jesus where he says, wisdom is proven right by her actions.
Right.
Right? And it's like, haters going to hate.
Yeah,
Okay.
haters going to hate.
It's still a Tuesday.
Yeah.
We got stuff going on out here. Yeah.
Right.
And if your money's not going to come... this is another nerdy thing we talk about internally at Corner to Corner is our fundraising philosophy is right dimes over wrong dollars.
Okay.
And we're willing to have less money or even go out of business to do this in a way that is honoring to the values we hold, the way we understand God's mission in the world, and the way we want to love neighbors. And
Wow.
if you're telling me I got to raise funds and hurt my neighbors at the same time, F that.
Right.
No, we're done.
And that's powerful because you know yourself, you know who you are, you know who Corners to Corner is, and there's no like wiggle room to like be compromised.
No.
There's no and I think we're all at some point in time, especially in this work, like tested in that way. Like whether let's see if I can throw some money at him or her, or let's see like how far they're willing to move away their core values and who they say they are and how they project themselves. So that's a real big thing for me. I will stop everything like cold turkey if I feel like it's compromising, or if I know it's compromising who I am, or will compromise who I am and what I stand for. Like I like it's not even anything I need to think about. Like it might be a professional way I might need to go about it, but it's happening.
We're done here.
Yeah, we're done here. Yeah, we're done. And that's like that's a biggie for me. Like that's a huge.
Absolutely.
And I respect anybody, no matter what it is. You know. I respect anybody that can draw that hard line and stick to it and not be compromised, because that's one, it's not hard to do, and it's like I like to put it as I took the stairs in life. You know, I didn't take the elevator. The elevator is you can compromise, you can be what people want you to be to fit into that moment to rise up, or to plateau or whatever that may be. But I had from an early age, like I think I'm gonna kind of just do things like my own way, and whatever comes with it, come with it. But I know at the end of the day, I know I was true to myself, and I didn't let anybody compromise that for any amount of money or any amount of benefits or whatever it may be. And so that's man, you're awesome, Will. Like I really. Like this, like it's on so many levels. In we gotta get to some other stuff.
I'm curious. Before we get to other stuff, what got you to that deep conviction for yourself?
Man, I'm gonna tell you. I think I was in MTSU.
Yeah. What year are we talking?
How old am I now? I'm 30 now. So this was 2000.
I'm 30.
You about to? Hey man, look good for 30.
Yeah, exactly. I've been using this new moisturizer I got, man.
Hey, you gotta give me a secret. What water are you drinking? Fresh from Durham. You brought some good stuff back.
Some artisanal, handcrafted.
But no, it was like 2008, 2009, because I was like 18, 19 years old. And so I got it, and I was already rebellish. I was already like, I want to do things my own way anyway, right? Yeah. And so I remember I was having it was some extracurriculum meeting or something with an African American studies teacher. Yeah. And we was talking about something with jobs. We was talking about like something with that in like presentation and stuff like that. Yeah. And she was projecting her conditioning and what we should look like, talk like, be like to be successful.
Yeah, like here's how you do code switching kind of well.
Right. This is how you conform to white supremacy, right? Yeah, pretty much. And I don't. And at the time, I couldn't even tell you those terms or phrases. I wasn't familiar. I was fresh, out of high school. Didn't know. I was just going to college because I felt like that's what I needed to do. I didn't like really understand the true purpose of college even at that time, right? And so, but I knew something in my heart was like.
You felt that tension.
Yeah, how come I can't go into a place or interview like this, and if I don't, that jeopardizes me getting a job, right?
I can't be fully me.
I can't be fully me, right? And not knowing at the time, I understand what she was saying as far as like, well, first of all, you're a black male, and like you already got everybody. Like, you're one of the biggest threats, if not the biggest threat to the world, and you have to conform if you want to be successful. Yeah. But what she should have done is gave us the two scenarios. Like, hey, this is one of the routes you could be to kind of be comfortable in this white supremacy society that we live in, or you can be your complete self, and these might be some of the barriers that come with it. But hey, that's okay. But she didn't do the latter. She just projected the one, and I knew right then we got into a huge debate about it. Right? like we didn't. I didn't see her after that. It's like she became a ghost to me in my life. But then at that moment, I knew like, oh yeah, like this is like I guess I'm just going to be taking the elevator in life because I just don't feel comfortable, and it didn't make sense to me on why I needed to look and dress a certain way in order to be successful, in order to get what I want. And so so that's when I knew. Like and I of course like mentally I matured in the other ways like prior to that moment, but that was the moment that I know I remember like, oh yeah, like I'm not. I guess it's just gonna be what it's gonna be. I guess I won't be getting the job. I guess I'll be creating my own job. And so yeah, man, that was the moment when I like the crystallizing moment. For me, when I realized like, oh yeah, like I'm doing my own thing. And so it's empowering. And I try to anytime I speak to youth, especially, I try to like break it, especially black men, black young boys. I try to break it down to them and say, hey, look. You can wear your hair this way, you can beard and everything. Like and I encourage that. But these are the realities of possibly being your fully self in this society in the United States.
You will run into X, Y, Z.
Right. And that don't mean you need to conform or anything but these are just a reality, so don't be shocked. And there will be a point where you're like who you are is tested. And I've had friends when I was in the Peace Corps, they had dreads and stuff. And it's like, man, I'm cutting my hair because, I'm trying to, get into foreign services and things like that. I was like, and I had dreads at the time too. I was like, I wouldn't do that, but that's me. And I knew I was a little different. But I was like, hey, I didn't like demonize them or anything like that. It was like, hey, if that's what you want to do. But some of them got the job, some of them didn't. Was it because they cut their hair or not or whatever? Maybe so, maybe not. But it's like, I whatever it's going to be, it's going to be. So for me, that was the definitely crystallizing moment. I've been that way ever since. Yeah.
And I like that idea of you can make the decision you want to make, but have wide open awareness of the choices and how the game is laid out.
Right. Exactly. Totally. And look, we finna get into this piece of Will.
Yeah, I'm about this.
Will is the first person to ever come on Deep Just Conversations and get only cheese.
I'm a vegetarian. I'm a sober vegetarian. I'm like super boring at a party, man. It's like no meat and no booze for me.
Well, I don't drink, but I definitely eat pepperoni.
No, somebody asked me, they're like, why are you a vegetarian? I was like, so I could be more self-righteous. They're like, that's not the real answer.
What's going on, everybody? This is your host and creator of Deep Dish Conversations, Jerome Moore, and I know you're enjoying this episode that you're watching currently. Make sure you hit that notification button and hit subscribe so you won't miss any of these amazing episodes. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for all love and support, and continue watching the episode. Yeah, use your muscles. Yeah, just like that. And then that was to pick up the pan. So I just picked it up with my hand because it wasn't hot.
Cool.
And then you just,
I love this, man. Up. I've never been here before.
Most people haven't.
Downtown has become a place. I feel like if you're, because I've been in Nashville 15 years. It's definitely like my grown-up home,
Right.
And nowadays I feel like downtown is only for the tourism industry or for jobs downtown. Right. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. I didn't, I was born and raised here.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how white Nashville was until I got older and started coming downtown and really seeing, because I was in my North Nashville bubble.
Yeah.
Church, my family church life, went to temple, so everything around me was just black. The schools that I went to, and so I didn't really understand how super of a majority white people were in Nashville.
Yeah, about 64%.
Yeah,
something like that.
And so Nashville is is an interesting place, which I want to get into with you as well, because you do a lot of economic power building development, especially with entrepreneurs. And Nashville, it city, as they say. I don't know who it is for. Well, I actually do know who it is for, and it's not for everybody. But I think what you do is very powerful, because I think Corner to Corner targets the people that are not included in the it. And you had said something I heard as far as, building small businesses and entrepreneurs is could be the pillars of community. I classify myself as a community economic development specialist, with all my international development.
I love it. Let's go. Let's talk about it.
All the building I've done domestically and internationally, and that's one of the things that really stuck out to me the most. And so can you talk about that program and how did that get started in wanting to invest? And I think the value, if I read correctly, is $1,200 value course, but you all is $125. It's very way more than affordable. Even if you just gotta find pennies in a couch, you can or I'm pretty sure people donate or get scholarships.
Yeah,
and
we
things
have
like
to
that.
be sustained by donations.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we couldn't afford to exist.
Yeah, and so but can you speak on that a little? Because I just think that's amazing, and I think that's just empowering. Kind of talking about some of the things you was saying earlier.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
And how's the pizza?
First, I'm gonna do a commercial. Hey, next time you're hungry for pizza, come to Gino's downtown. It's really good. This is fantastic. So where do you want me to start? The overview of the program, the economic development side, or the why of the program? Which?
The why.
Yeah,
I want to care about the why.
Yeah, if we start with the why. So, simple premise, right? Jesus says, love your neighbor as you love yourself, right? Which is simple to understand, radically complicated to implement, right? Because from the minute my feet touch the floor, your feet touch the floor in the morning, we're trying to figure out, how do I provide resources for me and my family, right? And you think about that as drawing a circle of love around you guys, right? And Jesus says, that's great, do that. But if that's all you're doing, it's way too small. It's got to be bigger. So don't just obsess about your kids' educational future. Obsess about your neighbor's kids, right? Don't just think about your own bank account, right? Because on average, how many times a week do you think you check your online banking?
At least, if it's 7 days in a week, at least 7 times.
Oh, that's at least 7 times, right? I checked it, I think 3 times this morning, right? I was like, did the money come in or not? Can we make that run to Target, right? Right. And we're meant to be that concerned about our neighbor's economic future as we are about our own, right? So that's the why.
Many of us are definitely not thinking like that.
No, but that's the call of Christ.
Right.
So I would say, if you are a Christian, if you are professing to follow Jesus, your life needs to be about this. Not just as a one-time only thing, but as a lived out experience, right? That doesn't mean we get it perfect or always, right? Because we're not floating above the ground. We're complicated people, right? But we are meant to be aimed in the direction of our neighbor. So that's the why, right? And then if you look at Nashville, Nashville, like most major cities in the U.S., our black neighbors have 1/8 the financial stability of our white neighbors.
Woo.
Right? And that's true across all demographic ages, right? If you want, I can send you the link. You can put it in the show notes. Yeah. This is from a report from the Federal Reserve from 2019, right? So the data's there, backs us up.
Right.
And so the question is, what do we do about it, right? Well, there's multiple economic solutions. There's higher wages, there's new job markets, there's training to get jobs at Oracle, whatever, right? There's lots of different ways to get at that. But I think one of the critical ways is on neighbors' own terms. Right? And so having lived in the community, what I saw and experienced and still live in the community is neighbors doing 3 to 5 different things to make their economic year work, right? The myth of the lazy person in the hood or whatever, it's nonsense. That was a Reagan, talking point.
Right.
The reality is oh no, Miss Kelly over here is doing 3 to 5 things and she's going to make it work, right? And so how do you take one of those things and using basic business foundational ideas, grow that? and have her define success.
Right.
Not me, not high growth, not Silicon Valley, right? And then amplify that good. It goes back to the asset-based thing, right? And so from a practical standpoint, what that looks like is we have two big categories. It's called the Academy.
Right.
There's the Primary Academy, which is a 10-week program using this curriculum we licensed that's now used. We licensed it. It's in 80 cities right now.
Wow.
But we are their number one customer. So we're the biggest in the nation with that curriculum.
Wow.
Where it gives you all the things you need to know in terms of who's your target client, what problem are you solving for them,
right?
You know, who's your competition,
right?
How do you get them to know, like, and trust you, aka marketing, right? What are going to be your startup costs, ongoing costs, legal structure? We get into all of that.
Wow.
And then we bring in guest speakers every week to increase both your knowledge base and your network, because we know network is linked to net worth. Right? If we're going to break down economic segregation, we actually have to get people together.
Right.
And so there's a lot of that, right?
Okay.
And then we graduate this with this massive block party. Like the in-person one prior to COVID had over 500 neighbors there.
Wow.
Right?
That's a block party.
Oh, no. And it's like, it feels like a family reunion mixed with like a business expo, mixed with a compassionate pitch contest, right? And when I say that, I mean, this is the opposite of Shark Tank, right? and what I'd say is the opposite of Silicon Valley.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, like, we do need high growth companies.
Right.
I think they're important. They can employ a lot of people. But the framework and the thinking doesn't work for front porch businesses.
Right.
Because that mentality says you better be incredible, your idea better be incredible, because that is what gets you in this room and keeps you in this room.
And you better be able to potentially forecast this amount of money.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, you're gonna all those things, right? And what we're saying instead is no. What gets you in this room and keeps you in this room and gives you access to this training is because you are our neighbor.
Right.
And that's incredible.
Right.
You have value.
Right.
And now the framework we learn, that's just a tool set to pivot and change and work on different ideas.
Right.
Right. And that approach has led to what I would describe as like an empathy-based model, where we're actually like, instead of, I would say, empathy over competition, right? So in that one class, you'll see, oh, I build websites, awesome. I do events, and I need a logo, right? And whatever, it starts mixing it up,
right?
And they're helping each other,
right?
And their businesses are starting to grow,
right? Wow.
And we've got lived examples out of that, like Carlos Partee, who with his co-founder launched the Black Market.
Right.
He's a graduate and a leader at the Academy, because
Wow.
the classes are led by graduates.
Wow.
Right? And they're community located, so they're happening in family rec centers,
Right.
resource centers,
Right.
historic neighborhood churches.
You're very limbo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're all over the place.
Right.
But then, like, Danielle McGee, who launched Black Business Boom, she's a graduate and a teacher. And after teaching one of the Academy classes, she saw all these business owners who needed access to more clients and access to technology. Right. And she started Black Business Boom.
Wow.
So, like...
Didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. So beautiful things have come out of that model.
Right.
And it's get out of the way.
Right.
This is somebody else's dream.
Right.
All you're doing is giving them a framework that's going to let them unlock some rocket fuel. But it's not about me.
Right.
And it's not about corner to corner.
Right.
And then where we're going, like big vision, there's national data that says in Nashville, we have room for 10,000 more Black-owned businesses.
Wow.
That would be $250 million in the annual economy from the ground up.
Wow.
Right? So we want to make Nashville with partners, right? With some amazing people we partner with, not us, but in community. We want to make Nashville the #1 city to launch or grow a Black-owned business in the South. Right? There shouldn't just be one Atlanta.
It shouldn't be.
That's crazy.
Well, you know, they know what they call Nashville, the white Atlanta. So
I've never heard that phrase. They call that the white Atlanta? What? Who calls it that? This is fascinating. Please.
Like, from the Black perspective, like you think about it, it's like if you look around downtown Broadway, everything like white people come here, visit here, they love it here, they stay here, they move here, right? And Atlanta is like the Black Mecca of like just like a business of like successfulness, entrepreneurship, like that's the hub.
Film and entertainment.
Yeah, film and entertainment, and like country music, like so that's how you get like Nashville is the white Atlanta.
I've never heard that phrase.
Yeah.
Do I have your permission to steal it?
You have
use it?
permission to steal it, use it. It's not copyrighted or anything that I know of, or trademark. So that is on the record. Nashville is the white Atlanta, and I don't think anybody would no, I don't think nobody would disagree with that. No, nobody would. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. If you just go downtown, just look around, look downtown, and it's the white Atlanta. And if you go to Atlanta and like P Street and all that, it's like okay, yeah. So it's like
Yeah. But my argument is like, we have the financial resources. Mm-hmm. We have the neighbors with creativity and dreams and passions and skills.
Right.
What we seemingly don't have is maybe the corporate will or the political will to make it happen.
Right.
Right. And so my mindset always goes to like the early days of the hip hop movement, right? It was, let's get some speakers, set them up in the park, and run power back.
Right.
Right? And nobody cared much about that park.
Right.
So you're able to play music until 3 a.m.
Right.
Right? And there was nobody looking to ask permission.
Right. Just do it.
Just do it.
Right.
If we're not going to see it happen from the structures,
right,
why don't we just do it?
Right. Yeah. No, I agree.
And have that vibe, that kind of like,
Yeah. No, I'm definitely let's just do it. Like ain't nobody gonna be no sitting ducks and just wait. Just gotta make it happen. Mm-hmm. And hopefully our local government here in Nashville will get on board and put money in those type of programs, and so those things can happen.
Yeah.
Council persons and the mayor and all you other power broking decision making have power decision making folks out there, hey, connect with Will. You corner to corner and let's in other community and let's get these black businesses invested into, and so we can be the largest state or city in the South to grow black businesses from the ground up. Man, Will, is the pizza still good? Is it still your breakfast?
Yeah, you talk for a while. I'm gonna keep going. I'm just gonna eat.
I'm really interested in and this is the second to the last thing I really want to talk to you about, is the balance of work and like family life. As we touched about a little earlier, you have a son and a daughter, and your son is special needs, and so I don't know what that looks like, what that means in my personal day-to-day life. But just hearing you talk about it on other platforms, I know it's not easy, and I know it took some adjusting. As you grow, like you're growing your family, trying to grow corner to corner. And I know it's probably other folks out there that have maybe a child has a special need, and maybe feel like they have to stop everything, and it's impossible to grow a business or do anything, have other ambitions, because that's like work, like undescribable in itself. That could be, you can have a program, you can have it organized, but sometimes it's just sporadic. Can you touch on that a little bit about just that process and your own maturity on dealing and handling that, and being able to still build out corner to corner simultaneously?
So I'd say from the first is coming to grips with what I would describe as the gift of limitations. Okay. Right? And I mean that, like, I think we, in the American mindset, we have this I will overcome triumphalism kind of vibe, right? I know it's definitely in the white culture. I based on episodes of Shark Tank, I think it's just out there. Right?
Just, everywhere,
And how many Gary V videos or whatever else, right, are floating around that are like, just go out and crush it, yada, 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 right?
I have my mixed feelings about Gary V.
Yeah.
I think what he says is powerful, but I think, too, he leaves out a lot of just social realities that, like, hey, man, you like Yeah. Some
Yeah,
people.
we're not all starting from the same place.
Right. Yeah.
Some of these hard workers are starting on third base.
Yeah.
Some haven't even been up to bat yet.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
But what I mean is, like, I think we can do meaningful things in our families and in our communities while recognizing our weaknesses.
Right.
And not being overcome by them.
Right.
If we take the approach of, you know what, I'm going to have some awesome days, I'm going to have some really hard days, and I'm going to be honest with myself about which are which, and I'm going to adjust my output.
Right.
Right? Like, to use a cheesy metaphor, but like if you're climbing a mountain, right?
Right.
Maybe one night you don't sleep so well at your campsite, right?
Right.
So the next day you don't walk as far.
Right.
That's all right.
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 That's all right.
But then the next day it's perfect.
Right.
So maybe you pick up some mileage.
Right.
Right. And really having that freedom to give yourself that gift of limitations and recognize it. Right.
Right.
So I'd say mentally that's like a really important part, and then practically, like for the work of Corner to Corner, it's really helped us in some beautiful ways to say we never wanted to make something about us.
Right.
Right. So if I need to be in bed by 8 o'clock because my son, in addition to some other things, has a sleep disorder, and I might be up from 1 to 4.
Right.
Right. That means I'm actively looking for amazing talent to be out at that night thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Versus kind of like, yeah, we'll get to it eventually.
Right.
And so an example, and get into this further if you want, but like, we've always said we want Corner to Corner to be community-led from top to bottom, even at the highest levels.
Right.
And so, like, Shana Berkeley, one of our academy graduates, became the director of the academy, grew that from 3 to 10 sites, like,
wow,
amazingly talented leader. And I approached her and said, hey, you should be the executive director.
Right.
Right? Like, and there's a part of that would still have happened, but would have probably happened down the road.
Right.
But part of the embracing the gift of limitations goes, you know what? Like, I don't think I am the right one.
Right.
To take this to the next level.
Right.
And I trust Shana's leadership and ability that's going to allow me to be more present with serving my family.
Right. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing on so many levels because I think we all have been around people or know of examples of people in leadership that's all about them. And it's not about empowering other persons and knowing their own limitations. It's admitting like, hey, somebody else is better. I recognize like the greatness in other people and what they can do, and that person should be in my position and not should use my skills and my neck or whatever I do to build the organization in a different way, in a different sector. So man, that's amazing to hear, and it's amazing, and that lets me know that you do a lot of self-reflecting.
Probably too much.
Yeah, because it takes a lot of self-reflecting and just knowing limitations, and also wanting to build other people and knowing it's not like about you. And I was just telling a friend of mine, it's like, hey, like eventually I would love somebody else to host and do this that probably can do it better than me, because I know like, hey, I have limitations. There are people that can host things way better than I can, but also just give other people opportunities to shine and do their thing while I go off and build something else and build other people in a different way. And so I just think it's special people that think that way. And I don't know if it's the Nairobi thing. We have international experiences and just I don't know what it is, but it's like you just know when people say certain things, they're like, oh, okay, they get it. Like they went through something maybe similar, or maybe like just exactly what I've been through in life at certain point, and just recognize it. Like, he gets it, and Will gets it. Will gets it. And so no, that's amazing to hear, because especially when you have something great, people usually don't want to let it go. Right? But you're like, no, this is my baby. I want to hold on to it. But
I genuinely believe that like Jesus lived, died, rose again, and one day like the restoration of all things is coming, right? And I'm gonna get to sit at that banquet feast, right, with all these neighbors and have this never-ending party, right? And that's not about me,
right?
That's about truly that's about the glory of God. That's about
Right.
the beauty in my neighbors.
Right.
Right. And so how weird would it be
Right.
to be like, I love my neighbor so much, but really this is me getting
Right.
ego stroked.
Right.
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 Or like, yeah, the Will Show. And
Right.
I see the Will Show every day. It's
Right.
boring. Like, I want to see the other people's show. Yeah.
2 more questions for you, Will.
Yeah. And can I take this home?
No, yeah, you
like,
can take.
what's
you
the
can
rule
take,
here?
You can take anything that you see of food. You can take all of this home.
I want this.
Yes, you can take
like,
that
in
home.
my
We'll
life
get
the
you
rest
to
of
go by.
today.
They're gonna put it together in a fancy little puzzle
Yes.
thing because their boxes are like a puzzle jigsaw. So
I
you have
love
to
it.
have like different. You have to have different type of motor skills.
I love it.
What does power mean to you when you think about power? Because and I bring this up because Jesus had a lot of power, has a lot of power. You know, the United States military has a lot of power.
Yeah, different kinds of power.
Deeper kinds of power. And sometimes the word power can seem threatening because of most of us think of a power in maybe a negative way because how we've experienced it or seen it and how people use their power, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
power can uplift or it can crush.
Right. And so what do you think about power and how do you use the power that you have to better community?
Yeah. So I think one of the best things I've read on this is a book called Strong and Weak by Andy Crouch.
Okay.
He's like a theologian and Christian thinker. I really recommend checking out that book. But one of the things he talks about as in how Jesus used power was that he had vulnerability mixed with authority. And that when those are both happening, some beautiful flourishing can happen. But when you get authority with no vulnerability, you get it's my way or I'll crush you, right?
Right.
When it's all vulnerability, no authority, you get poverty,
Right.
right? You get people with no voice,
Right.
right? Or when you get, sometimes even in a tragic situation, you get people with neither, right? Or rather, I'd put it more like this. You get people who give away their authority
Right.
in order to be, to have a bubble life
Right.
of fake protection,
Right.
right? And so it's like, you think the strong man,
Right.
we'll vote for this guy
Right.
because he'll make us feel safer.
Right.
And you're like, whoa, like you bought into the lie,
Right,
you know?
right.
And his argument is like, no, that balance between vulnerability and authority, that's like the sweet spot.
Okay.
So that's how I personally think about it.
Okay.
And so, yeah, using your power, no matter who you are, for the good of your family and for your neighbor, and using your voice and understanding your voice and understanding your sphere of influence.
Right.
Not just for your own good, but also for the good of neighbor. If you're
Right.
having that kind of framework, then beautiful things can happen.
Right.
If instead you're trying to have a protectionist mindset, right?
Right.
Like, and I see this now, right? Neighborhoods are gentrifying all over Nashville,
Right.
right? All over every urban center in the U.S.,
Yes,
right?
right.
And you have almost 2 types of gentrifiers, right? I call them the capital G and the lowercase g, right? You're all gentrifiers. Me too, right?
Right.
I bought a house where I could afford in a low-income neighborhood,
Right.
right? I'm a white middle-class guy. Yeah,
Right.
like I'm a gentrifier.
Right.
I'd like to think I'm a lowercase g,
Okay.
right? As we'll unpack. But an uppercase G gentrifier is someone who comes in and goes, I'm going to build the biggest fence. I'm only going to be outside when I have to mow the lawn or unloading groceries, right?
Right.
I'm not engaging with the neighborhood at all.
Right.
And I'm waiting for it to feel safe to me,
Right.
right? That's a castle mentality.
Right.
That's acting like you're under siege.
Right.
Right? Which is an awful way to live your life. It's
Right.
not good for you. It's not good for your neighbor.
Right.
Right? And you're not using any of your power
Right.
in your job, in your economic position,
Right.
to actually learn what's going on in the neighborhood and
Right.
move towards neighbors.
You're right.
Right? Versus a lowercase g gentrifier comes in and goes, I really want to know my neighbors.
Right.
I want to know the joys, the sorrows, the highs, the lows, what's going on. Let's have a real human relationship.
Right.
And then you see them automatically start thinking in ways that they can benefit their neighbor in a shared experience.
Right.
And power in that framework can really shift. Yeah.
That was beautifully put. Wow. Don't be capital G. Yo.
Yeah, don't be a capital G gentrifier. Y'all know who you are. Yeah.
So to wrap it up, Will, I really enjoyed this. Wow. And if we had through 2-3 hours, we could go. But trust me, we can go. But I want to bring it back to the listeners. How can they use maybe the power or resources that they have to support Corner to Corner, or if they don't have power and seeking some type of entrepreneurial power,
for sure,
or have kids that need to boost their literacy in a fun way, how can they be a part of that? What is the best way to get involved?
Yeah, so if you want to start a business, if you're thinking about how to get that rolling, all you need is an idea and the ability to pay for the curriculum. We cover all the other costs, right? So go to theacademynashville.org to register on that side, right? Our next classes start in September. So yeah, theacademynashville.org. Follow at Corner to Corner on Instagram, subscribe, YouTube, all that stuff. We have a lot of content that we put out. And then if you want to get your kid connected to Script to Screen, go to the website cornertocorner.org and you can find a way to sign up there. We'd love to have you, your family get connected. If you're in a position where you have some extra resources, click cornertocorner.org/donate, right? We are a community-based nonprofit. Over 60% of our fundraising dollars come from individuals. We don't exist without individuals. So yeah, whether it's $1, $5, $500, whatever, kick in to the good of neighbor at cornertocorner.org/donate.
Wow. Donate, hard money, soft money, time, whatever. Donate, support. Will, I appreciate your time. I appreciate for what you do for Nashville, how you build people in Nashville, in community, and just your knowing your self-interest, and using that in the best way possible, and knowing your limitations. You're a blessing. I thank you. I hope you enjoyed the pizza.
Oh, it was great. Love the conversation.
And I hope the listeners, I hope y'all really enjoyed this episode of Deep Dish Conversations. Make sure you check out Corner to Corner, subscribe to all their platforms. Reach out to Will. He's very accessible. If you want to come talk to you, come in your platform. I don't think we can have too many Wills speaking on too many platforms, for real, seriously. And he's a cool guy. This is like, and if you got pizza, he's definitely coming.
Yeah, I'm coming. I'm there for the cheese pizza.
He's definitely pizza. He's definitely cheese pizza. But we appreciate y'all. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. Will, thank you again, man. This has been. We're gonna talk more after this. Y'all ain't gonna. This is behind the scenes stuff. You ain't gonna get. You might have to go to the corner to get the extra stuff. But I appreciate you. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, and we out, man. Appreciate it, Will.
Thanks so much.
Good. Will, man, that was amazing.